Good evening. My name is Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, so glad to have you back tonight. Should be an interesting episode. Was hoping more guys from the crew would show up, but it's already approaching a holiday season. A bunch of cats are out of town. Sadly, Varn is on hiatus. Toussaint's on hiatus. Everybody's on hiatus. Jesus. That's okay. That's okay. We got the core members here with you tonight. Should be a good one. Very excited about this. There will be no champagne this evening because I am, after the show is over, for a change, going to go across the imaginary line people call the border and see an old friend, my tour manager / fill-in bass player, Bitter Lake, is on tour in the United States from Brazil. So this is one of the rare chances that we get to see each other. Haven't seen him in 2019, 5 years, over 5 years. So I'm excited to see my homie. But before I bring in my other homie, let's talk a little bit about the topic at hand. Are we all dealing with the post-Bernie malaise? The 2016 election marked a seismic shift in American political stratification, shattering the liberal-conservative binary that had defined the preceding era. With the departure of Barack Obama, many hoped his successor would continue the momentum of his propaganda of hope. Instead, Obama's tenure revealed the limits of neoliberal governance, epitomized by his decision to bail out Wall Street rather than American households amid the financial crisis. Obama, once heralded as a beacon of hope and change, ultimately reinforced the bipartisan neoliberal consensus that has dominated Washington since Reagan's era. In this context, 2016 set the stage for the rise of two insurgent figures who each, in their own way, challenged the neoliberal status quo: Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Both outsiders, Sanders with a vision of social democracy, Trump with the reality show brand of populism, galvanized a disenchanted electorate. Sanders championed a return to New Deal values, critiquing the Democratic Party as a tool for the 1%, while Trump, exploiting his insider knowledge, confessed to the American people that the game is rigged for elites like himself. Although Clinton, the establishment's candidate, seemed poised to win, Trump's ascendance underscored the depth of popular discontent. Damn it, I was on a roll. While Sanders' call for economic populism resonated with many, the Democratic Party's focus on identity politics and market-friendly solutions sidelined his movement. Clinton's eventual defeat, despite a popular vote victory, underscored the profound disconnect between establishment politics and the working class. In the years following 2016, Sanders' message only gained traction, as inspiring a generation to imagine a society grounded in social democratic ideals. Yet the defeat of Sanders in 2020 and the resulting presidency of Joe Biden dashed these aspirations. Biden, while reversing some Trump policies, retained the core of his predecessor's agenda, including hawkish foreign policy stances. Now, as the 2024 election is over, the left is once again at a crossroads. With figures like Sanders seemingly sidelined, and with the looming return, or actually I shouldn't say looming anymore, with the return of Donald Trump, can the left reignite its vision for a better future? In a moment defined by bipartisan support for militarism abroad and censorship at home, does the U.S. still have room for the progressive, transformative vision that Sanders once embodied? To help me answer these questions is my homie, my dog. He is the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He's the guy that you people came here to see. He is the Pascal Robert. Hey,
Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles.
how are you?
Leroy.
Other than a few faux pas, I think the intro set the tone for what we're going to talk about this evening. What do you think?
I think so.
Um, Sanders's influence on today's left. How do you think the Sanders legacy shaped current progressive movements? The DSA members number skyrocketed during his first and second runs for the White House. Is there a new leader who could step up to fill his role, or is his brand of populism fading within the Democratic Party and Americans more broadly?
I am not as romantic about Sanders' role post 2020 as many. I think that between 2016 and 2020, his role was quite laudatory, something to be
Mhm.
definitely appreciated, as that he was able to capture about 35% of the Democratic Party body politic with a new left populism that had been unheard of since maybe the Great Society of the New Left, or maybe even going back to the New Deal. But I find that in the wake of the constant fear of Trumpism being heralded as the new fascism, that Bernie Sanders forced his coterie of supporters to capitulate to the Democratic Party at every whim without putting out much pressure on the Democratic Party centrist faction, to the point where much of that Democratic Party left, those progressives, got neutralized in primaries from places like Jamal Bowman and Bush, and were also being antagonized in earlier primaries by people like Hakeem Jeffries. They never found a home in the Democratic Party. They were always made to feel like they were alien unless they completely capitulated and kissed the ring, as in AOC did in the Democratic Convention, and just came out and just totally supported the agenda. So what I'm saying is that what good the ultimate agenda of the Sanders politics was to say that, well, we have a two-party binary kind of political system in America. We have Democrats and Republicans. We don't have third-party politics. We don't have ranked choice voting. And the left is better finding a popular front strategy with the left flank of capital and the Democratic Party, and fighting its politics out in those spaces. And since we were able to capture 35% of the Democratic Party, it makes sense for us to find a home in that party. I'm not convinced that that strategy works well for the left, and I haven't found anyone who has explained to me how the left doesn't get subsumed in centrist corporatist Democratic parties for assuming that posture.
After Bernie Sanders' first defeat in 2016, you have to agree that there was a feeling in the air that more people were open to ideas around, let's just say, social democracy.
Yeah.
Socialism was popular, communism was popular, but we don't want to get too deep into internet politics. There was literally people out in the world that were running for office in 2018 and 2020. Um, between the I would say the infection around Sanders, um, there was an infectious nature around Sanders because he was a Washington outsider. I state this in the kayfabe documentary that one of the things that helped Bernie Sanders was um, he had a lifetime being an outsider, being an agitator, being an activist, and he also had a great New York accent. I think if Bernie Sanders sounds like Gavin Newsom, people don't care about what he has to say.
I actually think it has to do with the fact of his generation. He has a grandfatherly appeal that a lot of the millennials look forward to. Uncle Bernie, Uncle Bernie. Oh, it's Uncle Bernie, Grandpa Bernie. They saw him as an elder statesman in a way that they didn't feel the same way with the boomers.
But would you say that because of the Sanders moment, you do get this boom where people want to run for office. I mean, we saw it again with
Yes,
the
no,
ascendancy of the squad, we'll say. And I hate using that term because that's a term Donald Trump threw on them. It's ultimately a media term because those were not the only freshman congressmen that year that were, left of Democratic or Democratic Party orthodoxy. Katie Porter never gets thrown in that mix, and I believe she definitely bought into a lot of that Bernie Sanders populism as well. Would you agree?
yes.
But those were four women of color, and of course, Katie Porter doesn't mix within that media narrative. That being said, there's this moment where people are not just running for federal office. There's also a lot of people running for state and local office. We're still seeing it in LA's city council. There was a few people that were DSA endorsed candidates that won against establishment candidates. That being said, is there still something to be said about running on Sanders style New Deal economic populism? Can you still win with that? Maybe not necessarily at the national level, but can you win at the local level?
I think you can win local seats. I think that in local municipalities in New York, where you have parties like the Workers' Families Party and you have other third party alternatives, that a strong left Democratic Party candidate can eke out a victory in those spaces. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to congressional seats, I'm scant to see how, even if you win those seats, how you're able to maintain your actual political integrity and not have to capitulate to your right when you have people like this. I mean the head of the Democrats in the Congress is Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, come on, man, this guy's a hardcore Wall Street finance Zionist. He's never been a fan of the left. His whole agenda has been to gut the Sanders progressives as much as possible.
Has it worked?
It worked pretty well for him. He remember how many primaries he was able to keep them at bay when they were challenging congressional seats.
I
In
mean, the Democrats lost, or the squad, if you will, the left flank of the Democratic Party. I don't know what you want to call them, progressives within the party. I don't what is the right name to call them? I don't like the squad.
say the left flank of the Democrats. I don't know, the progressives.
Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman kind of get cannibalized in the party.
Absolutely over Israeli politics.
Do you think that was a bad sign for the average voter as well to see?
I think it was very much a bad sign. I think that this type of infighting that I don't see how the left progressive Sanders faction has the muscle to go against the corporate sector of the Democratic Party for actual territory in electoral spaces if all it's going to do is capitulate to the center under the guise of being afraid of Donald Trump.
So that doesn't work for you?
It doesn't work for me. No, it doesn't make sense. I haven't seen it work.
Well, what factors do you think explain the Democratic Party's reluctance to embrace Sanders's policies, even as they grow in popularity? Is there room within the party for a resurgence of New Deal era values, or did that die
That's a
with
great
the
question.
ascendancy of Third Way?
I think that agenda always presented a conflict for the internal soul of the Democratic Party, in that since the rise of Clintonian third way politics, the Democratic Party was a captured party of corporate neoliberal capture, meaning that when the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council, comes about in 1988, the agenda of the Democratic Party is to pivot away from minority and people of color issues and try to capture Wall Street, big finance, and other elements of the corporatocracy that will be more friendly to their liberal elite management style without the racism of the Republican Party. So they pivot to a management style where they can capture the corporate sectors of the of the liberal body politic while sacrificing those communities of color with things like welfare reform, prison reform, things of that nature, doubling down on quality of life, municipality issues, things of that nature. So what ends up happening is that the Democratic Party, for a good 30 years, ends up sacrificing the agenda of its minority coalition to appeal to the corporate core of the liberal elite in American society.
But doesn't its minority coalition get victories in 2020?
Right. Well, what happens is that Sanders comes about in 2016, and he's fighting against that
Okay.
long-standing trend that
Mhm.
starts with Bill Clinton, and he successfully lets people know that this has been a disaster for working class people with things like NAFTA and GATT, and he's trying to remind the Democratic Party of its New Deal civil rights origins going back to the 60s and the new civil rights and the new left of the 60s. And Sanders awakens something in the imagination of particularly younger millennials who are downwardly mobile, college educated kids, largely white, who are not facing the financial benefits that their parents' generation could have coming out of college, faced with student loan debt, a lot of fear of healthcare debt, and his ring to end neoliberalism and to stop the bankrolling of the financial institutions on literally on the backs of the body politic awaken something in them, and that basically is what causes a schism in the Democratic Party. What I would argue is that what ends up happening is that because Donald Trump is successful in his electoral bid, Sanders is not able to finish his job as making a plea for his politics. And as a result, he chose to engage in what's called the Popular Front strategy. The Popular Front strategy is a strategy in which the left flank of the Democratic Party, the socialists, the leftists, the communists, join with the corporate liberals together to fight the right wing fascists. And as a result, uh, being the good democratic socialist that he is,
Mhm.
Bernie Sanders realizes that because Trump is the ultimate threat of a new kind of politics that he sees as resounding with almost a kind of fascism light, if you will, if not necessarily total fascism, he
Mhm.
agrees to this Popular Front strategy. And I would argue that the Popular Front always means that the left gets eviscerated because they have to surrender their principles to the corporate center. And that's what ultimately happens. And that's why his attempt to capture that power, that energy that he has in 2016 and 2020 gets lost in the sauce. And now we have nothing but a Trump second term and the liberals kind of looking, you know, limp, but not limp enough to assume that they need to surrender themselves to Bernie Sanders type politics.
But Trump doesn't win his next term in office. Why?
Oh, that's a COVID situation. Trump loses to
But then
the
why
only
does he win again? It's not like the dead people came back to life. There was no reverse
It's a
snap.
very good question. I think that what happens is that the post-COVID political economy of the United States,
Mhm.
whether it be just the economic causes of inflation,
Mhm.
combined with some of the more nuts and bolts issues like crime that
Mhm.
really starts to bother people in the inner cities, causes the body politic of the American voters to become more conservative, and they generally don't see any kind of answers coming from Kamala Harris that really explain why they're paying an extra $2.50 for a loaf of bread, or $1.50 for a container of milk. So as a result, they are willing to say, "Listen, when Trump was president, things were a little bit better off," and they're willing to give they what's one thing that this tells me is that all of this is Trump a fascist? Is he not a fascist? Is he a danger for democracy? That's all elite chattering class discourse.
Mhm.
Working class people don't give a shit about that stuff at all, frankly. They don't care about saving democracy. They care about saving their paychecks. They don't care about they don't know. Listen, fascists, fast cars, fast. They don't make a difference. They want to know: are they going to be able to pay their bills? Are they going to be able and they don't like they do feel that the immigrants are causing a bit of a storming the barricades, if you will.
I mean,
Taking
there's footage of it. I mean, would you say that the greatest strategy that happened post Trump is the migrant caravans to cities like New York and Chicago.
It worked very well. You got liberal mayors like Eric Adams to sign on to Trump rhetoric, Trump madness in terms of immigration.
A few years ago, maybe even a year ago, I would say that the liberals won the culture war. Much like we talk about how Black Power won rhetorically where it failed politically, the culture war was won by the liberals rhetorically, yet they never fought to retain power, right? Liberals had been getting kicked out of school boards left and right, city councils left and right, and now out of Senate and congressional positions left and right. With the right now winning the culture war, is the Republican Party now the party of the working class?
That's a very, very good question. Now, you remember that the Republican Party, as the party of the working class, is not a new constellation in terms of politics. That goes back to the Nixon Hard Hat rebellions, if you remember. It also goes back to the Reagan Democrats. So there's been this posturing in the 50-plus year counter revolution of Republicans trying to capture the white working class as this kind of lost brethren whose natural home is with them, because the Democrats are giving too much front to those brown people and those gays and those feminists. And I think that what the polling numbers show from this election in 2024 is that Trump made serious gains with working class whites. But I don't think it's because of the cultural issue. I think it's because they're still hurting, quite frankly.
Wait, so you think, say that again?
I think they're still financially hurting. And I think that they feel that Trump is a stronger alternative.
But why do you there's this thing where people love to dislodge the cultural from the economic as if they're not intertwined.
I don't listen.
Why would you say it's not one, it's the other? Why can't it be
I'm not
both?
saying it's not one, it's the other. Do I think that it bothers them to have to hear about transgender bathrooms? Of course it does. Do I think that they're not exactly a big fan of DEI and intersectionality? Of course they're not. Do I think that they're a little not too thrilled with seeing commercials with biracial kids on the cereal boxes? Of course they're not. But I think that the driving force behind them, because many of them voted for Obama, is political economy. And I can tell you right now.
Okay, let me stop you right there. If it's political economy, then you're saying that someone can project onto Donald Trump that he's a salve to the economic wounds. Now, if you were hurting in 2016 to 2020, if you're still hurting in 2023, why would the guy that was part of your hurt, even if you got a bump in your check for a year or 11 months or whatever it was for your unemployment check, if you were even unemployed, people were still getting evicted, even though there were all these protections. So I push back on this notion that it's always simply economic, because if it's economic, then how can someone who hurt you economically be the solution to you just 4 years later? Because there's a lot of projection in there, and to act as if it's just mixed people on commercials is a little reductive, I think.
Because politics is perception.
Okay, but still, it's reductive to assume that perception stops and starts.
I'm not saying it stops
people in commercials, and that's all it is. It's just, well, maybe they hate mixed people in commercials, but they're hurting economically. It's like, okay, I watched ads in your state, in my state, in about at least 30 states, and in those ads, there was nothing about the economy. Nothing.
I can tell you one thing that a lot of them don't like. They don't like people storming their borders, coming in and calling,
Exactly. That's an economic issue. That's a culture war issue. That's why I'm saying this idea that you can decouple the two, you cannot. That's why I say the right one.
I'm not saying you can. I'm not saying it's necessarily one or the other.
That's why I said it's both.
I don't disagree.
But I see a lot of talk about, oh, it's just economics, and these people are, yeah, sure, everybody. I'm economically.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If Joe Biden had a 5% GDP growth, and he had brought forth 15 million nice, well-paying, $50 an hour jobs. And he actually saw one of the greatest expansions of working class stable and brought healthcare.
Mhm.
Do you think that he would have had a chance difficulty getting reelected?
But Trump didn't do that either.
No, Trump didn't do that, but Biden was supposed to save us from the problems.
He was supposed to save us from COVID, right? To your point, there's two things that happened in 2020. It's not just COVID, right? It's also the George Floyd shit. That's when niggas get all the George Floyd money. How many billions of dollars the cats get?
A lot of billions.
Trickle down was the solution, and it was all about entrepreneurialism from the Democratic Party, right? We're going to fix your reparations through all this foundation money, and it's going to trickle down to you poor Negroes. That is the opening of the door, in my opinion, to Donald Trump. We're not going to fix any of these economic woes with true New Deal solutions. We're just going to give you
Bitcoin.
Trickle down. We're going to call it something different. We're going to put a colored face on it. We're going to kneel in some kente cloth and pretend we're capitulating to whatever it is you want, which is the grander question to your earlier point. Who really won in 2020? I mean, everybody's George Floyd money, that tap is done.
It's over.
And it was already over after Biden walked in the door and said, look here, Jack, you're not getting shit from me. And now you got Trump in office. I mean, I'm sure you saw those cats talking about their slavery text messages.
Yes.
Did you get a slavery text message?
No, I did not.
Do you know anyone that got a slavery text message?
I knew one who got a slavery text message then.
You want to explain the people that got the slavery text message?
Apparently, the FBI was warning that there were some students. I think some of them were students at historically black colleges.
And some professors, yeah.
And some professors who were getting text messages from Trump supporters that were telling them to please report to the nearest plantation to prepare to pick some crops. You laugh at this. Some people think this is horrible, Jason. We should. I'm not saying it's not funny. I'm not saying it's not funny, but I'm saying
it's funny as fuck.
Look, that some people find this to be evidence of a hate crime, coarsening of the racial coarsening of America, blah, blah, blah.
All of them had one tear at the same time, slowly rolled down their cheek.
I'm just saying.
Like, seriously. This is, to me, that's the reaction you get when you know the party's over. You just start creating some shit.
Oh, the party is over.
Party's over. It's over. No more black section on Netflix. No more. I mean, people were tired of that like a year after the whole bullshit.
Yep.
Pascal, you want to laugh so hard.
I'm trying to be sensitive to the causes.
I wish I would have got my show up for slavery text message. Did you see what the message said?
I read it. I saw a snippet.
It said the executive slave was coming to pick you up in a black or brown SUV.
So they had Uber? They had Uber service?
Like, why would you want? There's a reason why people had slaves. I don't understand why you'd want like slave. And they wanted to specifically pick cotton, which seems counterproductive for cotton farming in 2024. There's machinery that does that way more efficiently than a person.
We've had it for a long time.
Especially a person that probably has never done any sort of real physical labor. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't have taken that as seriously as I saw these cats doing. But do you think the NAACP got some donations from it?
I don't know. I'm not trying to slander all the...
I think Frank Wilderson sent those messages. That's got Frank Wilderson's fucking handprint all over it.
Him or his wife, right?
They sent them together. That's why some vans were brown and some were black. It was the Wilderson family fucking pre-Christmas treat. Did you see what Nuri said? Is the executive slave Ben Carson?
We coming for you, nigga.
Pretty much is what that text message said. Has the Democratic Party's focus on identity-based entrepreneurship and individualism impacted its ability to enact substantial economic reform?
Yes, because they're choosing that as a panacea and using it as a methodology in exchange for policy-based remedies that are class-based. It's race-based remedies as a result of not wanting to have class-based remedies. And then you notice they pitched that particularly to black men.
You over here trying to be serious, and these Negroes is not letting us, by the way.
Those text messages were sent from Jesse Smalley's burner phone. The wording was too polite.
We're trying to have a real show here, and you people aren't letting us. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating when this happens. But back to the whole, kind of what you're saying. There's always this embrace of certain identities for the Democratic Party and what they're going to do. And I believe Kamala was still either the AG, she might have been a senator or an AG when she said this. I can't remember when she said it. When she said the line about if she wants to have every illegal and trans person that wants they can have access to transitional care while in prison. That was Bill Cody said to me the other day, that was the Willie Horton ad of 2024, because that's the one I saw over and over and over again. If you listen to that ad, right, it's not really saying much, because first of all, how many trans people are in prison that want to transition while in prison? And it sounded way worse maybe than it actually was. But there's real fights that I think are being lost to the right. And I was telling you this off air. There is a school district in Southern California. This has just happened last year. It's still kind of ongoing right now. And this school district, which is a newer suburb, I believe the city was created in 1991, called Chino Hills. Their school district had elected a far-right Christian conservative that eased up on the Jesus just a little bit and pushed a policy on the school district that a lot of people within the school district seemed like it didn't make a lot of sense. And what that policy was any kid that showed up to school that was using a name that wasn't the name they went by on their records and was going by a gender that wasn't the gender on their records, or using facilities that didn't respond to their birth, sex, the teachers would have 3 days to contact the kid's parents and let them know that the student was doing this. Teachers didn't necessarily like it because they're like, look, our job is to teach, not necessarily be cops. We do enough policing in our classroom. This seems a little unnecessary. There's like a caveat in the rule that said, if you feel that if you called home, the student would get like hurt, for example, then don't call home. Anyway, there, of course, was pushback on this, and the state attorney general sued the school district and won. The argument was, for a lot of people in the school district, was less about outing kids and was more about, I'm the parent, and if there's something going on with my child that I don't know about, I want to know about it. And they hated the idea that the state was involved in their lives. And this is a blue city with 2 Democrats in the Senate. They voted for Biden overwhelmingly. But overwhelmingly, they were furious over this issue. What I found interesting about this story that no one wanted to talk about was the fact that the school district was spending tens of thousands of dollars to defend itself in court against the state. And one of the issues in the school district, because it's in a really hot part of town, it's like east of LA, was that there were schools with broken AC systems. They were understaffed. They were hiring teachers through a service that was giving them tons of unqualified teachers. And there was like one teacher that stood up and said, look, why are you spending all this money with this useless? Why aren't you addressing the real issue at hand, which is the school district needs more teachers. We need more janitors. We need more special ed people. And we need an upgrade to many of our facilities. That voice is silenced for the fight over parental rights.
Priorities.
How do we as leftists interject the important issue in situations like this?
Well, for me personally, I think the agenda that's most important is the political economy of the school, and why there's no AC, no teachers, no adequate actual student care to the students. And this other vanity project needs to be put to the wayside. Not that I'm saying that it's nothing important to make sure we protect the kids who may be trans proximate, but I mean, come on, man. At a certain point, the right of the parents to know is the right of the parents to know. I don't mean to be seeming too hardcore, right wing on this issue, but maybe that'll be me.
The school district or the city had 5 straight days of over 100-degree temperatures, and there were, I forget how many schools had broken AC systems. So kids were stuck in classes with 100-degree weather.
That's insane. In California?
Mm-hmm. This is a nice neighborhood. This is like not a poor neighborhood at all. I believe the median income in the neighborhood is like $132,000 a year, with a median house value of about $727,000.
Damn, Chino rule like that.
With there's about 78,000 people in the city, and it's about 70% home ownership.
Wow.
Yeah. So there should be no reason for multiple schools to have broken AC systems, right?
Word.
Nuri Yang says it's called character building. But seriously, how do you get beyond kind of the foolishness of the conversation and actually talk about the real matters at hand? Because sadly, no one wants to talk about the real matters at hand, which is you have a well-to-do area that has a lot of homeowners, so you should have a good tax base funding your school system, but you can't even afford to fix your AC or hire teachers.
You have an election where you have a right winger come in and not snot everybody, and then they wake up and realize, oh my God.
I mean, but that's the thing. This person won school board election. And they're not the only person. They were part of a campaign from the right to put more right-leaning people on school boards as school board heads.
I mean, this is where the left is always going to get stuck on itself. I mean, are we going to take up these ID poll postmodern vanity projects? Or are we going to deal with the political economy of what these kids are facing? At some point, we're going to have to make a decision. I can tell you, you can tell where my opinion lies.
But why don't we have, again, like I said, when Sanders comes into office, Yeah, or not comes in office, but when he runs for office in 2016, 2018, a lot of people are running for smaller offices, right? My buddy Shahid Buttar is going to challenge Nancy Pelosi for her seat, right? There's these ideas that we can challenge establishment Democrats and we can win small offices. Again, LA City Council, there's some seats that were lost that were like establishment political figures lost their seats to DSA people, and this was like 2022. So, what is it about low level office, especially when it comes to school boards, that seems to be the kryptonite for the left? Like, we can't get near a school.
Oh, it's easy. It's a low overhead election, man. You don't have to put out as much to challenge an incumbent. The power of incumbency is not as strong on lower level, smaller elections as it is in bigger ones where you actually have to have capital to challenge your incumbent seat.
Yeah, but why won't more left people run for these positions? They're relatively easy to win.
Oh, there's got to be a recruitment mechanism that takes people out of DSA into actual community building and going out and shaking hands and getting ballots put on ballots, having their names put on ballots.
When Trump returns to office, what are the likely consequences for American political institutions and social movements? Will his anti-elitist rhetoric resonate as strongly, or have his policies exposed the limits of his populism? Did the Own the Libs second election of Trump send a signal that the 2016 left moment is dead?
I mean, when we look at some of the people that he's putting into his cabinet, you got Matt Gaetz as Secretary of Attorney General. You got at Secretary of State, we have Marco Rubio. Little Marco. I mean, it's definitely a dangerous terrain that we're on right now with Trump in terms of where he's going with the election. And I think that Trump is sending us a message that he's willing to use his presidency as a means of being vindictive, and he doesn't care about governance
at all. At all. I really don't think he cares at all. This is this is the most fucking Charles Bronson bullshit I've ever seen in my life in the presidential position. You see Tulsi Gabbard got a position?
Director of the DNI or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, here's something I want to know how you feel about as we're coming closer to the end of the show. And thank you guys for watching. Trump has frequently spoken about purging Marxist influences from universities. Do you see this as a viable policy threat, or is it merely symbolic rhetoric? What impact do you think could certain measures have on public discourse?
Well, I think with his Trump Agenda 47, he could find means to put certain kinds of informational tests or in educational systems that challenges professors who teach. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to have freedom of speech claims to try to challenge his draconian measures in the courts. But when the courts are tilted so much to the right, how much luck are they going to have? So he might have some luck with that.
What does that mean, though? If is it going to be the loyalty oath? Right? We've already seen it with Israel. Do we then see it with the president where it's like you have to sign a loyalty oath? Is this going to be McCarthyism 2024? And if so, what does McCarthyism 2024 look like? We know what it did to the labor movement. We know what it did politically to America. But what is, in an era where there isn't a left as strong as it was 60, 70 years ago, and with working class power winning, there's some gains we're seeing in the labor movement. I don't know if you saw this. Starbucks, the company said, fuck it, we'll negotiate with you. We're going to stop fighting this shit. The NLRB passed a law that says you can't have these meetings anymore that were mandatory to tell people if you unionize, you will hurt your relationship with management. that can't be done anymore. Are we going to see a rollback on some of these reforms? Does labor get weaker? What happens?
I think we're going to see an all-out attack, not even a rollback. I mean, Donald Trump is very anti-union. He's anti-NLRB, National Labor.
We say that again because I missed you.
I said I'm expecting the worst.
No, before that.
I said Donald Trump is very anti-labor, very anti-NLRB. I mean, you can imagine with someone like Elon Musk backing him, what kind of labor policies he's going to have.
What do you think the labor is going to look like? I mean, we already saw in California, Proposition 20 really attack the idea of being an employee when you're an employee. And are you going to see a federal right to work? What are we going to see?
We're not going to see a federal.
Why?
I mean, federal right to work law. Federal. I thought when federal right to work law.
Yeah.
Definitely not federal jobs guarantee. I was confusing.
No.
I wouldn't be surprised if he proposes a federal right to work law. Quite honestly.
Yeah.
Listen, everything's up for grabs here, man. We got to be prepared on all fronts.
How has Biden's decision to uphold key aspects of Trump's policies affected public trust in the Democratic Party? Has it created space for further right-wing populism, or does it simply reinforce the bipartisan status quo?
I think it allows kind of politics that force him to take a lot of blame for things that weren't his fault in the election. Like some of those inflation, Biden could have handled. I mean, a lot of that stuff comes literally from price gouging. It's not all his fault. So I think that, unfortunately, and also when it comes to the border, it makes it seem like Biden is just trying to replicate some of the worst of Trumpism.
Which is crazy because the border, I've literally talked to people down here that said, man, the border's wide open. And then I look at them and go, have you literally crossed it to get in here and you're going to cross it going back? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's insane that people really believe that. But, you know, the Biden administration is moving on. The Biden administration's stance on Israel and Palestine has spurred significant protests. Do you think this response from progressives will catalyze a shift within the Democratic Party or further alienate its left-leaning base?
I think the left-leaning faction of the Democratic Party that believes that not supporting Harris was going to guarantee a more humane foreign policy from Trump will find itself sadly mistaken, and that Trump is going to prove to them that things can't get worse in the Middle East. When you have things like Mike Huckabee being bandied about as the ambassador to Israel, come on, man.
So if like there were people saying, well, a lot of the loss of Harris had to do with Gaza. Why is Trump better than Harris on Gaza?
I don't think he will be. I didn't make that calculation.
No, you did not. Other people did.
Other people did. I don't think he will be.
What role do you see grassroots movements, especially those inspired by Sanders, playing in the 2028 election?
I think they need to stop worrying about elections, and we need to stop organizing people right now and start going to a strategy where we start knocking on doors and getting people to talk about like what's going to be on with these union movements, what's going on with these appointments, and how exactly do we stop Donald Trump from implementing the worst of his agenda.
Do you think that moment is gone, though, to have people that want to do that?
I think that one thing about Trumpism is that it breeds a certain kind of energy, political energy, where people who are unwilling to work together before may come together now to challenge him because he's so outrageous.
Here's the question that I want to hear your quote unquote hot take on, and I hate saying that. Gives me indigestion saying that out loud, hot take. But this idea that Bernie Sanders would have won had the Democrats ran him in 2024. Do you believe that?
No.
Why?
I don't believe Bernie Sanders would have won in 2016 or 2020
Why?
because the institutional mechanisms of American capitalism are not going to let a socialist become president of the United States.
Beyond that, why?
I don't think Bernie Sanders would have been able to actually get the votes necessary running as a democratic socialist in the conservative, in the center of capitalism in the world to become president. No matter how popular his agenda would have been.
Really?
No.
If that's the case, then what do you think about people that say, then again, if you believe that, then you said earlier it was economic why people voted for Donald Trump. If there's a guy in office or running for office saying it's the economics that's killing you, and I'm going to tell you why would that not be as popular?
Because there are other things besides economics that dictate elections: perception, media, the way the person is presented. And I think that the Democratic Party would have done so much to sabotage Sanders that even if he did win a primary, they wouldn't have let him become president.
Let's just say they don't. Let's say they don't sabotage him. Let's say the call's not coming from inside the house.
So you don't think that Donald Trump...
I didn't say about... I'm saying, what if... Do you think he can beat a Donald Trump?
Do you think Donald Trump every day saying Bernie Sanders is a socialist, Marxist, communist is going to ring okay in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Florida?
It all depends on what you mean is a communist. And I think this, again, is where I find the right has won the culture war. They have convinced everyone that a socialist or a communist, back to the Chino Hills, because I actually listened to those interviews with that school board president, Sonia Shaw is her name, was saying that these were leftist policies from the communist governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and the socialist attorney general, Rob Bonta. And that was said over, over, and over, and over again. If you have a media apparatus that has that message going on and on and on, then yes, you can scare people into thinking that Bernie Sanders' campaign is a campaign of detransitioning your child and lopping off breasts left and right. But that's part of the story that I think a lot of people that even watch shows like this are extremely unaware of. That conflation. What do you say to that conflation?
I think that they would make that conflation. The Republicans would definitely do it.
Yes. But how do we get beyond that conflation?
That's a tough one. I think we have to find a way as dialectical material leftists, if you will, to separate the postmodern identitarian elements of the agenda from the nuts and bolts economic issues and lead with the economic issues and not with the postmodern identitarian issues. I'm not saying that we turn our back on our trans people. What I'm saying is that we should lead with, hey, the federal jobs guarantee, universal health care, free child education to the university level. Don't you think that might be better off and help you with the paycheck?
Oh, dude, I agree with you 100%. I think that message totally kills the message of, the trans people are coming for your kid's penis. But that fear of the penis and parental control, I thought that was just genius strategy on their part. Much like I found the migrant caravan, just genius fucking strategy from an evil standpoint. That shit has really destroyed public perception, especially in places like Chicago.
Yep.
I mean, hearing all these Negroes just literally reiterate Donald Trump's speeches, it's pretty frightening. But what do we do, Pascal? What do we do about that?
I can't pretend to have all the answers, Jason.
That's your job. You're here for one thing and one thing only, is to button your shirt up all the way to the top and answer these goddamn questions.
Organize.
Well, what do you say to people that say we've done all the organizing? Now what?
Nah, you never done organizing, man. There's always something to organize around.
There's a good question. Timothy Cornerstone says, I keep hearing a federal jobs guarantee. What does that look like?
It's a good idea. This is a good idea.
In Trump's America, you know what that looks like? That looks like becoming a border patrol agent and rounding up 43 million undocumented people.
That
for
would
the
be
biggest jobs program since the New Deal.
Unfortunately, that would be Trump's idea.
Oh, yeah. If Trump was able to pull, and Kuba said this on the show a few weeks ago, if Trump's able to pull that off, that would be a New Deal style, because you're going to have to throw a lot of money in that and do a massive hiring. If that goes down, who's there to stop it? To attempt to stop it? Or do you think American people try to stop it?
It's not going to be the Congress, because it's going to be controlled by the Republicans.
How can we put this? Do rich elites try to stop it?
Cool.
Because why would they want their labor source?
The Koch brothers.
Would they try to stop it?
They might, because they like that cheap labor.
That's what I'm saying. Is that Trump's biggest foe? Will it be the elites? It's definitely going to be the deep state's going to be his biggest foe, since he's going at war with them and the bureaucratic state.
Yep.
Do we see a return to like the Lincoln Project style Republicans?
It's all up for grabs, brother.
Okay. Last one. Tough on crime rhetoric has made a massive comeback. And 2020, we saw a whole lot of people getting their ass kicked by the cops. Now we're seeing people getting their ass kicked by people and no cops be there. Will we see, do you think, because this is the administration that can do it, a federal 3 strikes and you're outlaw?
If the crime rates go up, I think it's possible.
I mean, again, Trump used fears of places like California, which actually does have a higher murder rate now than it did a few years ago. Do you think he can roll that out?
I think he will try it if the crime rates justify it.
Do they have to justify it though?
I think so. I don't think Trump was going to do that without the crime meriting.
I mean, he didn't need to try to build a wall either. He still tried to, just because it was a campaign promise. Like, which campaign promise do you think he's going to try to really? Is it going to be Marxist professors? Is it going to be immigrants?
The immigrants, going after the immigrants for sure.
You think so?
Yeah.
And how do you think that's going to work? You think he's going to try to do the big job?
I don't think he's going to be able to deport 20 million, undocumented aliens, but he's going to send a few people back. He's sending a couple of million back.
Someone says, don't trust crime stats. Okay, I won't trust them or my lying eyes. Fucking high. Jesus. People love going, the crime stats aren't that bad. It's like, some aren't, some are. It's okay. Just be truthful. It's, again, don't run away from the truth. Because as we found with this election and these last 4 years, constantly running away from the truth in front of you gains you no allies, gains you no ground. Hate to break it to you, they're up. And also, don't bring up the 80s and 90s and say it's not as bad as the 80s and 90s. The 80s and 90s were so bad, they invented new fucking drugs. And if that's your benchmark for how bad things need to get for you to be concerned, get a new benchmark. What say you to that line, Pascal?
That's true.
So, oh, Pascal, we got a question for you before we go. Damn it. As an experienced gentleman with refined taste, Pascal, in your opinion, which is hotter, a conservative Cuban woman or a Marxist British sister?
I am not going to reduce.
Who's the Marxist British black woman?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Is she magical? Is she AI creation?
I don't know.
I'm sure she exists somewhere. Kushlik says Cubans in general are good looking. Is that true, Pascal?
Cuban women are very attractive.
Kushlik says this is not a contest. Am I seeing Mexican crime? Yeah, I am. What do you know about U.S. crime rates? Crime here is very fucking different than crime in the United States. I will say that. It is worlds different. Oof. Okay. There's some good comments. Lady Braga says, late to the convo, but I went to one DSA meeting in around 2017 and they were making she, her, hers buttons. There you go. We knew Dems would run against Trump, Putin, and SCOTUS, but what will they run for? Says Tony Red, other than more neoliberalism. That's what we have to change. That's a good point. Tony then says, it's the ideological abandonment of the working class, though PMC's so-called lefties and liberals like to say it was the working class that abandoned them instead. Oof. Tony is fired up tonight. You fired Tony up, Pascal. Brian says, I am eyeballs deep in some AK press literature right now. No Parzaran Prime on the docket. Ears trained on this fine discourse. Thank you, Brian. Bernie Grasshopper says, Bernie Sanders definitely inspired me big time. I love Bernie Sanders. He would have won. Pascal says you're wrong. Says he wouldn't win.
I don't think so.
So take that. Please don't stop watching the show because of Pascal. Don't let him be the reason. Let me be the reason, not him. Super chat. Thank you, Comrade Calvin. Pascal, considering your background, would it be a mistake to join Freemasonry in the coming era?
No, I'm not into Freemasonry. So you want me down with the Grand Poobahs?
Very refreshing to hear Pascal hearing too much brain melting shit from the Platts and resisting all by my lonesome. That's from Kush. Look. Thank you, Kush. And Great Jungle says SCOTUS is smart enough not to get rid of the NLRA. I think he means NLRB. Right?
Yes.
That would do wonders for the labor movement, and Wildcats will be back on the menu in a big way. What if Trump tries to lock up Wildcat strikers?
He would.
Would that scare people from striking, or do you think we get a labor movement like the fucking turn of the century?
I don't know, man. I can't call it.
Is that too frightening to think about, actually?
Can't call it.
Okay, well, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll be back Saturday with our good friends from 99 Zoo Eins. We'll talk more depressing talk. We'll talk about a growing threat in Europe from the right. The Nazis are coming back. Have you read a little bit about that?
No, I'm not trying to right now.
One tragedy at a time for you?
One at a time.
Oh. Pascal's not going there. They say. Andy says he thinks Trump's sending the National Guard there immediately. You think Trump's going to send the National Guard to the border like his first day in office?
Nah, he's not going to go that crazy.
Is there going to be, before we go, this is the $1 million question, Pascal Rivera. Is there going to be a liberal January 6th?
No, hell no. Come on, man. The libs ain't got it in them like that.
You sure?
No.
Pussy Hat March?
No, please.
No?
No.
What about the Pussy Hat Riots, Pascal?
No.
You don't think there's going to be a Pussy Hat Riot?
No.
They come out with their pussy hats and they get to the Capitol and they rip off their pussy hats and they have fucking AKs underneath and just start shooting. It's not going to happen.
No.
See, Strom says maybe.
Liberals are weak sauce, man.
Kushlik says the liberals will have a hotter shaman. Strom says he won't rule it out. I'm with Strom. You never know. I think there might be a liberal January 6th.
Please.
Sam Badger says rolling. Laughing my ass off. Hey. Oh, Nima says libs ain't got firearms. They don't have the balls to take over anything. All right. Nima? I don't know. You never know. You never know. Boycott brunch. Oh, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. Kushlik says he wants to see that happen. We'll see how bad it gets. We'll see if these Negroes can amplify these slave texts into actual action. What if it was like the Black Israelites and the Nation of Islam teamed up with MS-13 and the Triads and just had a multi-ethnic coalition? You don't think that could happen?
No.
Look, I'm putting it out there in the universe. So don't listen to Pascal. Don't let Pascal rain on your parade. You can have a liberal January 6th if you want to. I will say this. They will shoot you on sight. This is not January 6th of 2021, and you will get shot on sight. Sean Moon says, oh no, my brother. Oh my God, the shit people are saying. See, they said they may boycott Target on January 6th. Pascal, you see this?
Alec Baldwin is more likely to drunk drive to the Capitol. Yep.
Andy says, the Black Israelites and NOI joined the Trump train. They were until the slave texts. I'm telling you, if the slave texts are used correctly, we can get those brothers on the right side for 5 minutes. Oh, before we go, Comrade Calvin says, can y'all do a show on the book, A Noble Fight, African-American Freemasonry and the Struggle for Democracy in America?
I think I have that one.
What is it about?
Grand Poobahs.
Like the rapper? Because he was awesome.
No, I'm talking about like,
I know. With the funny hats, the fezzes.
The funny hats and the Captain Crunch hats.
Nima says Kyrie is with us, right? Oh my God. You guys are hilarious. Wow. Somebody said Angela Rye is already asking, does Trump's transition need to be peaceful? Ooh.
Angela Rye.
For you, nigga.
She needs to go with some more Soul Glow for her hair, please, child.
If Angela Rye came on this show, would you be excited?
She's cute.
She's cute. Angela Rye, come on the show. Let's do an in-person show. All right, let's go. Thank you, guys. We'll be back Saturday, and we are
out.